Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Actors Theater Unscripted. I am Erica Denise, the Director of Learning and Creative Engagement at Actors Theater of Louisville, and I am here joined with such a fabulous panel today who is here to have such a engaging dialogue around Black leadership in the public sector. And so I do want to go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves, and let's start with Monica.
Hi, everyone. My name is Monica Hunter, and I am an assistant principal at Iroquois High School with JCPS.
And Judge Hickerson, you are on mute.
Like I haven't been doing this for 3 months.
Right.
Hello, I'm Judge Tanisha Hickerson. I'm a district court judge here in Jefferson County. I've been a judge now for about a year and a half, and before that I practiced law for about 13 years.
Thank you. And Miss Angela.
Hey everyone. So yes, I'm Angela Masden. I'm the director at the Parkland Boys and Girls Club. I've actually been here for about 4 years. And before that, I actually worked in JCPS in classrooms and also worked for doing the reading program at JCPS school.
Thank you. And Sam, although the topic is Black leadership in the public sector, you have been invited to the cookout. And so you are very much welcome to be here on this panel with us. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Of course, Erica, thanks for having me. I'm Sam. Last name's Aguiar. I'm a lawyer here in town. We're on some TV commercials and billboards and all that stuff. So most people probably know who we are. But thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much for being here with us today. And so I have a variety of topics and questions that I want to ask. And I want to start with Sam. Can you tell us about, oh, wait a minute. Before we jump into the meat of the conversation, I do want to do a mental health check-in. How's everybody doing with COVID-19 and all the issues surrounding the protests and the riots and Black Lives Matter and things like that? How are we doing mentally? Somebody want to jump in first?
Well, I've been kind of stressed because I am a mom of 3 Black boys. And so at the beginning of the movement, I was kind of nervous to participate and to be a part of it, even though I do have my 3 Black boys that I've raised and I prepared them for some of the encounters that they may face. But as time has progressed and gone on, and I've seen some kids their age and younger leading, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't go out there and support them as they work to change how things are. As far as COVID is concerned, it's driving me insane.
I know that's right.
I don't like being at home. And I was so excited when outside opened, but people weren't, following guidelines. Now outside's about to close again. So we can't win for losing.
I know that's right. Anybody else? What do you have any self-care routines that you're doing right now in this moment?
I'm not sure if I'm doing enough self-care or not, because I've watched more news, CNN and MSNBC and even Fox News. I gotta get everybody's perspectives. But I am very much like kind of a nerd, kind of a historian. So I pretty much try to stay up on what's going on. I read a lot of posts. I have conversations with some young adults. My daughter, who will be 23 on August 5th, I can't believe that. Her and her friends are participating in some of the protests. So we talk about how to be safe in a protest. Obviously, any parent is always concerned about, when your daughter starts to drive, well, let's go down to a protest. But she's done sit outs in the middle of U of L's campus. I wouldn't expect anything else. So it's a lot to be stressful for, a lot to be hopeful about. Passing of Representative Lewis just kind of really, it just really motivated me as well to make sure that we're all, fighting for justice and equality for all. So it's trying times, but it's exciting times. So happy to be in where we are today and hopefully where we'll be in the future.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm the same way. I haven't really did self-care like I need to. Since COVID has happened, Parkland has been opened. So we've been closed, but we've been open in a sort of different way, and we'll talk more about that later.
Mhm.
But I need to learn how to do more self care. But just like everybody else, I've been so wrapped up in like Facebook Lives, in news more, and I don't go to sleep until 2 o'clock because people are on live, and I want to know what's going on downtown because I can't necessarily participate in that.
Mhm.
Just like Monica said, I have a son, and so I just want to know what's going on because he's 6, and I want to kind of teach him because he's, even though he's young and he's not really understanding, he sees it on the news, and I want to be able to give him the proper education that this is what we're doing this for, this is what's going on, this is why we have to wear masks, and that is a challenge in itself. For him to wear a mask all the time, and he's just not really understanding. And so I just want to make sure that I'm giving him the education. And so I've wrapped myself up into all of the news more than I ever had. I even got Spectrum, I even just so I could see the news. So it's just been different, and hearing the kids in the neighborhood talk about it, it's just bringing things up that I never knew that I would have to talk about, I guess. So
Yeah.
it's, even they have been giving me education. And the funny thing is, a little girl today said to me, is Angela, I hope you are self caring because I know I'm going to get my nails done today. So just listening to them, I'm like, you're right. I need to get my nails done.
I
So
love it.
I love it. So, yeah, I do need to take their advice and probably get my nails done like she said. So
I love it. Sam, have you been taking care of yourself?
Sure, I'm surviving. It's it's about 6 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the morning every day, trying to get closer to the truth on what happened to Brianna. Thank God I got a wife that puts up with me, and thank God I got two good boys, and thank God I got co-counsel Anita Baker because she's the one who gets to deal with all the, while I'm dealing with all the rumors and this and that, and trying to dispel a lot of things that are making people nervous. Lanita's the one who is definitely just making sure that everybody nationally, from correspondents to celebrities to everybody else that wants to lend their generosity, has actually got somebody, a liaison they can talk to. And it's just we're going to get through this. It's like Andy said, I can't remember, Bashir, he'd say, we're going to get through this, we're going to get through this together, all that stuff. We are. But right now it's overwhelming, but
Yeah.
it's ultimately it's overwhelming, with hopefully an end game that's going to be you know world changing. So
Absolutely. Thank you all. Before we jump into the meat of this conversation, I do want to let everyone know that's watching, that for the whole month of July, Actors Theater has partnered with Roots 101, which is a brand new African American museum that has opened up or will be opening up on Main Street. And so half of the donations that come in will go to support them, and the other half will go to support Actors Theater. And so if you feel so led, please donate. You can do that very easily by clicking the donate button at the bottom of your screen and donate. So those proceeds will go to benefit both Actors Theater and Roots 101. Thank you for your donations in advance. And so, Sam, I have my first question is for you. And for those that don't know, you are one of the lawyers that's representing Breonna Taylor's family.
that's
Um,
right.
and so, can you tell us about your experience with local officials concerning the case?
Yeah. So Erica, first of all, I've been a long donor of Actors Theater and ticket holder, and anybody that is on. I'm not trying to. You didn't tell me to do this, but they really should. Every donation is a dollar well spent. So now let's talk Breonna Taylor. So in terms of local officials, you start to learn a lot more about them, good and bad, in cases like this, and you start to see who, politicians. I'm always skeptical of them anyway, and local officials, because it seems like they say whatever people want to hear them say so they can get a vote, and then you start to realize that some are really genuine. So the ones that really got together for Breonna's law has been amazing. There's certain members of Metro Council that have been absolutely wonderful. Jessica Green, wow, she's a pit bull, and she really worked her ass off for us to get that bill passed, and at all hours of the day. It was amazing. Um, we've learned a little bit about local officials, unfortunately, at the administrative level, that open records law, a lot of them don't think it really applies to them. So part of the trouble that we're running into are literally, um, for every open records request we send out, And thankfully we got subpoena power too. But for everyone we were sending out early on, we just kept getting in denial after denial after denial. We haven't had much interaction with the police department. There's been some officers that quietly have shown their support, but obviously they'll remain anonymous because that would put them in a tough spot. The governor was great early on. A lot of people don't realize that he was actually one of the influential voices behind the scenes that made Breonna's investigation get out of the hands of LMPD and go to an independent body. I know that some other people have taken credit for that, but really I think his voice is probably the most powerful behind that. So yeah, I mean, we've dealt with some government officials and local officials. Sadiqa Reynolds over at the Urban League has been incredible. And a lot of other local officials have come forward and said this just isn't right. And we'll talk more about it, but I don't want to be a ball hog. So who's next?
I do have a follow-up question for you. How do you feel about Mayor Fisher and his response to this case, or lack of?
It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible, and it's a shame because I don't know. I don't know Mayor Fisher personally. I'm not going to sit here. I just know that this response has been a joke. From day one, when all of a sudden we get that canned response, it's an officer involved shooting, fear for my life, shot back. Oh, by the way, there's no body camera. Surprise, surprise. It seems like every time that we think there might be footage that would clear up a controversial situation, magically that camera footage is not there. But when it's something that isn't controversial, it seems like the camera's always there. The 2 months to get it sent out for an independent investigation was awful. The 3 months to fire Brett Hankison was an absolute embarrassment. When you have an officer that, is firing recklessly blindly through windows and then goes AWOL from a shooting scene, I don't give a damn about the whole investigation. He didn't play its course, or criminally. Those are acts right there that are so egregious that we don't need that kind of person in the police force. I think that hiding behind 67C is disingenuous. We keep hearing KRS 67C prevents me from talking about this, prevents me from firing officers. No, it doesn't. Okay. The mayor can talk about things. Now, granted, if he's got the feds and the AG saying, we don't want you to compromise our investigation, he can even say, fine, but my constituents, my local community takes precedence over your need for confidentiality. They need to know certain things that have happened. So you could have asked me that question and we'd still be going at 9:00 tonight. Let's say a few things. The chief needed to go and he's gone. I'm not knocking him as a person, but it was time and it was overdue. The announcement last week that independent investigations will now be mandated in officer-involved shootings, that's a good start. And then they announced that an inspector general is coming in, so that's a good start too. So it's just, here we are, we're 4 months after the fact and we're just still talking about some reform, and we still got a community right now that knows nothing. So no, that's long answer to an easy question. I don't think the response has been good at all.
So speaking of a community that knows nothing, Judge Hickerson, last weekend, Grandmaster Jay came, who is the leader of the NFAC, and stated that the Attorney General has 4 weeks to move forward with bringing justice to the Taylor family. And so what can the community do to prepare for a not so peaceful return of this NFAC? And he threatened to burn Louisville down if the demands aren't met. And so are there any legalities that can hold him responsible for inciting a riot if that were to happen? You're on mute again.
Well, that's a loaded question, and it's actually loaded with a lot of speculation as well. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that the group organization and our members of them did speak with some elected officials before coming here. I obviously was not privy to the conversation they had with them. To the extent that when they come back, and of course they have the right to protest, and they have the right to, I'm not here to tell people how to protest. Of course, my preference is for peaceful protests. But you even go back to Martin Luther King Jr. and, Reverend Lewis. Those who protest in defiance of the law sometimes show the greatest respect for the law, knowing that those actions could lead to their arrest. Again, so I can't comment on how they may decide to come back and show their frustrations or their frustration about the ongoing civil unrest, not only regarding the unfortunate Breonna Taylor case, but even what everyone is protesting for. Now, as far as the very specifics as to whether or not they could get charged with inciting a riot, again, those are going to have to be they're going to have to, the facts are, you're going to start with the law, and then you're going to apply the facts to the law. And there's so many facts we don't know about whether or not they would truly incite. I mean, I know they're a big group, so they should meet I think it's five or more people. I don't have the statute in front of me. I know it's a misdemeanor. Look, but I know it have to meet those very specific facts of the statute. And again, those are too many things that I can even think of. Now, as far as whether or not the threat to burn down a city is something that's going to come to fruition, I personally just doubt it. I mean, Louisville's not the biggest city, but we ain't small. So, but I think that's where I think all the judicial partners, as far as, LMPD, I guess at this point in time, my guys are retired firefighter, the fire department. I guess everyone would definitely all hands on deck. But again, how you decide to protest and what you do, just as it can have effective change, it can also have certain consequences. And I think those who are in certain organized protests, they understand that. And I think some people don't, and some people are learning as they're learning to protest. We're in a new age where I think back in the civil rights, just as there were recently, I think people are learning how to use their voice, learning how to be in numbers. And I think that's going to take, for some, trial and error, for some might have some consequences, and for others, again, if it's a nonviolent offense, you are arrested on something. If you don't have a extensive criminal background, things like that, a lot of the judges here in district court, whose your case could come before, I think, know how to weigh the balances pretty fairly of whether or not you're a danger to society, going to be a continued danger in the community, whether or not you're a flight risk and things like that, and allow your case to go through the court system. And I think that's what a lot of people want. Fairness in the court system, to actually be there, have their case presented, to have their evidence heard, to have their arguments made, and if need be, the end result, maybe a jury of your peers. And again, I could get on a whole nother soapbox of whether or not our juries are diverse enough, but that's another topic for another day.
Okay. So, Judge and or Sam, what is it that the public may or may not understand about the law? And specifically relating to if Mayor Fisher could have actually fired the police officers, why he didn't fire them. What is it that we may be missing?
Well, and Miss Denise, due respect, I am going to let Sam handle, or Mr. Aguiar, handle those questions, just to keep with the appearance of impropriety and not to be biased on a case that's actually in our jurisdiction. That's Absolutely. Not I want to comment on, but I know Mr. Aguiar can.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I can comment on it. I'm Sam, by the way. You don't have to call me Mr. Come on now. I mean, you're judge, but I'm hoping for the rest of us here. It's Monica, Erica, Denise, Angela, whatever. But anyways, so here's the deal. 67C is going to dictate some due process rights for police officers. So there's going to be certain situations where obviously, if they get wrongly terminated, then they can go and appeal and try to get their job back. But the statute also is very clear that there is full autonomy for termination. And nothing trumps that within the FOP contract, and nothing says anything to the contrary in there. So if you read between the lines, unfortunately, which is I think what you were asking me basically, to me what it says is that the mayor has probably reviewed their internal investigation, not the feds and not the AGs. And what it says to me is we're going to try to hide behind 67C, but really, now that we finally took a look at this investigative file, it looks like our officers concluded that only Hankison really did something wrong and nobody else did. So they can hide behind 67C all they want. And I could be wrong, but I'm just trying to use my best judgment. And to me, what that screams is, well, based upon what the PIU department handed us and we looked at, we only think that there's grounds for Hankerson right here. And if that turns out to be the case, I hope that the feds and the AG's office are working a lot harder to get to the truth. And I hope that it's not a result of some one-sided, police investigation where they're investigating themselves. But that's what it screams to me. Did that answer your question?
It does. Thank you. Thank you. So, Monica, you're an assistant principal at Iroquois High School, and I understand that many 2020 graduates and other JCPS students have led the charge with some of these protests. How is the district preparing to provide students with a voice during this upcoming school year?
Well, one thing the district has done is they've met with the administrators across the district, and they have mandated that administrators first be educated on social injustice infrastructures. And they've assigned administrators to read books, and then they're going to take that knowledge and stream it down to their staff. Because in order for true change to take place, we know it starts with leadership and it trickles down to those that are following them. So they've mandated a lot of education as far as reading materials, prepare them for this. And they've given us a structure or a framework to train our staff. Now, it's up to each school to decide how they're going to tackle that issue, because like you said, we have had hundreds of students, some graduates and some that are still JCPS students, that have led the charge. I remember my very first protest, it was a Red for Ed protest in conjunction with the student protest. I didn't even know the students were going to be there. So I had on my little red stuff and I was like, oh. And when I got down there were, I know, 500 or 600 students that we had no idea were going to be there. And they led us through the rest of the march. So it was crazy. But it's very important for the Generation X to have a voice. But in order for our schools, because right now we're going to start with NTI, but eventually, hopefully, one day we'll go back to traditional instruction. And so they will all be together. All those perspectives, all those interpretations of what's happening will be in the same building. So the district has mandated for each school to come up with a plan, which is part of our racial equity plan, which is a wonderful expectation that was put into place 2 years ago under the leadership of Diversity, Equity, Poverty with JCPS, for every school to identify differences within and disparities within every construct, looking at the data for different ethnicities, different cultural backgrounds, different racial backgrounds, and focusing on those things. So aligned with that racial equity plan is looking at social injustice and justice specific infrastructures and how are we going to do that. So one thing my school is going to do in particular is advocate for voice from our students in a controlled manner. So we're going to look at teachers and staff members who are comfortable. We're going to pull in our mental health counselors and our mental health professionals, and our youth service center coordinator, and anybody that has anything to do with social and emotional needs of our students are going to come together and come up with a plan to allow the students to voice their perspectives in a safe manner. So in the event a student speaks out during class, we're going to prepare the teachers with some stems that they can go into the conversation with, because of course that's going to happen, and how are they going to handle it. So we're going to give them some structures for that, some sentence stems for that, some different scenarios. If this happens, this is what you can do. And Black people don't have all the answers. So we know that our white counterparts won't have all the answers. We can equip them with some tools that they can utilize to ensure that the students are speaking, they're heard, but what are you going to do next? Because we can give them a voice, but they won't feel as if they're validated until they see change. So how can we take your voice? How can we take your passion? How can we even take your anger and actually go into the community and forge change? So that's what we're going to do at Iroquois, to make sure that everybody is heard, but everybody can also have actionable next steps.
That's wonderful, Monica. And I heard you mention NTI, which is non-traditional instruction,
Yes.
I believe. And so let's talk about that. And what about equity during NTI? And how is the district going to ensure that all students have equitable access to efficient instruction during NTI?
Okay, so we looked at the structure that was placed before us during the first NTI. Of course, we didn't know we were going to be in the middle of a pandemic in March. We didn't know that was going to happen. So we were prepared to end the school year with traditional instruction. But nobody in the history of JCPS has ever had to deal with a pandemic. We've had flu season, we have all that stuff, but it's normally a few students or a few staff members that are out, not an entire district. So we were running around like chickens with our head cut off, trying to figure out how are we going to ensure that our students are, they have access to instruction, period, to the end of the year, because we know when they miss the 8 weeks over the summer, they suffer from the summer slide. A lot of students do, unless they have access to enrichment programs over the summer to keep them on an even playing field. But the pandemic hit us, we didn't know what to do. So the district came up with enrichment, not so much instruction. They didn't want us to stress out parents, stress out students. And so the goal for NTI 1.0 was to enrich the students and to not stress them out. Our mantra for that time was do no harm, because we didn't know who was COVID positive, who had lost family members. And we had a few deaths within our school, not students, but family members that passed away due to COVID. But we didn't know that, you know what I mean, until the family told us about it. So we just wanted them to get online if they could, do a paper packet, do some projects. They were graded based on their previous success, and then they were able to bump up their grade or boost up their grade with the enrichment activities. This time, we can't do that because we're at the beginning of the year. We have somewhat of a plan, and all of our students need to have access to rigorous, challenging, equitable instruction. So how are we going to do that? One way that we're going to do that is looking at the students that have access to technology. And the district has already purchased 30,000 additional Chromebooks.
Excellent.
And the goal is for the schools to send out surveys or use our form or contact list and see who needs technology, who does not need technology. One disparity from the first go around was every household only had one Chromebook. There may have been 7 students in the house. So how are you going to expect 7 students to get all that work or all that those enrichment activities done? And it could be a 13-year-old brother watching his 5 sisters while mom is at work. So who is going to make sure this happens? So Dr. Polio had a press conference a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was, and he mentioned that they are purchasing 30,000 Chromebooks to fill in the gap for those families that didn't have access to technology for all their students or all their kids. So that's one way that we're going to provide equity across the board. Another way is looking at hotspots, making sure the students have access to Wi-Fi, because they can't do the work virtually if they don't have Wi-Fi. So that's the second thing that the district is looking at right now. There are, I believe, 25 that they've identified in addition to what they had before, which is good, but it's not great. At our school alone, we have 1,400 students, and we may have had close to 200 that were on paper packets because they didn't have access. That's a huge disparity. So we need to make sure they have those hotspots or access to Wi-Fi. Last thing is actually teaching standards. So something that is best practice, not just right now, but in general, is looking at what teachers are going to teach and how they're going to instruct. That happens during what we call POC process. That's the best way to do that. Ensure that every student at every level and every class has the same level playing field. So those professional learning communities come together. They've identified essential standards that they're going to teach, and they are going to be working. They don't know this because some of them are going to start training next week, but ding, 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 I'm going to give you all a little heads up. They're going to do some work, not just identifying those essential standards, but unpacking those essential standards to make sure that every teacher is teaching the same thing, and they're not watering it down because, oh, this student had this going on. So we don't want to challenge them. But we're going to push our students up to mastery and proficiency. That comes through assessments, that comes with collaborating teachers, that comes with allowing students to actually think for themselves, think critically. And so the district has done a great job with providing a framework for that. But again, it's up to the schools to ensure that that happens. So they're going to do a lot of work the next 19 days to ensure that we're all prepared. So some of that's going to be training, and then other parts of those 19 days will be them actually planning. And every group will have an administrator assigned to them, will have resource teachers, will have everything that they need to plan for this NTI. They're actually learning, our students are actually learning and not enriching what they already know.
Mm-hmm. So I did get a chance to see the meeting with Dr. Polio and other members of the school board the other day, and as they were discussing the NTI work, and I know for a fact that they're going to need community centers and organizations like the Boys and Girls Club to step up and help make this NTI work successful. So, Angela, what is the Boys and Girls Club doing to prepare our students or the students that attend your center for NTI work, if anything?
Right. So right now it's all up in the air at the moment, just because we are waiting for, just like Monica said, those 19 days that the teachers and things have to be training. So we're actually waiting for those trainings and seeing if we can be a part of those trainings somehow, so that we can understand what exactly is going to be taught to our kids, especially those kids in our areas and the schools that they go to. If we can try to have some kind of partnership or collaboration with them, because we will be open during that time. We actually are going to be open from 10 to 4. So we will be open during the time that probably most kids will be doing some of those online instructions and just trying to figure out how to help them. And so we're in the early process, because we just actually decided that we are going to be open during the fall, during the morning and afternoon and part of the evening time, how we could be a support. Just like Monica said, we don't necessarily want to be the person that is trying to do the work for them. We want to get them to that mastery level. And so we want to be able to support that and guide them if they don't know how to log on, or if they don't know how to do an equation, or if they're having a hard time with the English assignments, those things, if we need to be able to print something out and they can't print out because they're more of a visual learner. Those are the things that we're trying to do here at the Boys and Girls Club. We want to encourage and support our parents, because we know it's difficult. Being a parent myself, I'm going to be working and trying to get my son on at the same time. But we want to support our parents, because I think what has happened is that parents sometimes feel discouraged because they may not understand the work. And so because they don't understand the work, they disengage. And then the kid disengages. And then we have them not participating. So we want to make sure that we encourage our parents as well, and we support them, even if it's how to log in. If we can do some kind of class, some kind of Zoom of some nature to try to teach them how to log on to Google Meet, whatever we need to do, we just want to be that support. We don't want to be the one that's leading the way, because we don't have all that ability here. And so we want to just collaborate and enhance what JCPS is trying to do and get our kids on the mastery level, especially because our kids that are in the Boys and Girls Club are the kids that, have some challenges. And so, hey everybody. so, those so those are the kids that we want to help. They need the help. And so we're just excited, because I think that JCPS is ready this time, because last time we were all thrown off and we were just trying to make it. Okay. We were just trying to make it. I was trying to make it. My son was trying to make it. The teacher was trying to make it. Everybody was just trying to make it and get through. And so now I think that we are more prepared, and we know kind of what it's going to look like and how it's going to feel. And I think with these days that the teachers and administrators, the day that these teachers and these administrators are working together, and I think that it'll be better. And so that's just we're just waiting to see if we could be a part of those trainings. I know that our CEO, Miss Jennifer Hickerson, is trying to talk to some district members just to make sure that we could be a part of that, so that we can be, we need to be better prepared, because we're going to be with those kids that have the most challenges. And so we want to make sure that we are setting them up for success and not failure with this.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's so good to hear that you guys do have a plan that you're ready to implement. And I don't have any kids. And so if I had children, I know I would be unable to help, because that new math, like I've seen some of that new math, the Common Core, and I would be unable to help. And so I would be afraid my child would fail the school if it was left up to me to teach.
Right.
Now I can teach musical theater all day long, but Not
I'm an English teacher. Okay, so let me tell you about this Common Core math. I'm an English teacher. At the beginning of last year, I was at Atkinson Academy, and they do what's called number talks. And the number talks basically gives students access to different ways to answer math problems. And so that's why Common Core is different, because it actually gives students not just one way, but multiple ways to come to the same answer. So we can do our old school division, long division, and all that stuff, but we don't know the why behind the long division. Common Core gives the why. If you know the why, then you can remember those strategies. And when it's, I'm just saying, I was like, oh, I get it.
as long as 2 + 2 is 4, I don't need to know why. Okay.
I
don't
don't
need to
know.
know why.
I can right now, and Sam could probably attest. That sounds like a real bad bar prep. Multiple ways to get to a certain answer, but thank God for you educators. Thank you, sweet baby Jesus, for you all. 'Cause, and thank you for those who are used to putting up with people who are creative mind. You know, my baby is one of Erica Denise's babies.
Uh-huh.
And, I just gotta say the importance of education. I don't mean to jump ahead, because I know you actually had a just the importance of education is huge, and I just wanted to make sure for educate for Monica's on here teaching at Iroquois High School. I've done junior achievement there. I grew up playing ball in Boys and Girls Club, so thank you. I think we need a lot more things for our youth to be involved in, and for educators to show them that they care, and it's so important. It's so important.
Absolutely.
My little plug.
Yes, I love it. But staying in the vein of NTI work, Judge Hickerson, and equity, there are quite a few students that are in the judicial system. And so a girl in Michigan was sentenced to juvenile detention time for not completing her online work during the pandemic. So what are your views on that? And what can parents do to properly advocate for their children if they find themselves in a similar situation?
Okay. So my interest was piqued when I saw that case originally on, and I know that not everyone's always privy to all the things that the court knows. My understanding for that case was that she was actually, I don't know if she was supposed to be getting early release, but she was in the detention for, I believe, like assault and thefts and some other things that plague that our youth make bad decisions in doing. She might have had some conditions that included, keeping up with her work, and then that might have prevented her from early release. I'm not really sure of all the details. I know the judge in that case made a statement that that was not the only reason she decided that she kept the young lady detained. Nonetheless, I know from the outside looking in, it still can raise an eyebrow, almost shock the conscience if that's all you knew. And if that, and I would, the reason why I dwelled into this, I was just found it a little hard pressed that a judge would simply detain a juvenile because he or she did not do her homework. I think there's more to it. I know that the mother and the daughter in that case, and like a lot of our cases here, there's a lot of strife in the home. There's a lot of abuse that goes both ways, from parent to child and child to parent. And then we live in multi-generational homes. There's grandparents who are raising, children, and they come from old school thinking, coupled with new school thinking, coupled with, being able to report certain things at school. So it to me, it highlighted a lot of the issues that we have, which go from not only abuse in the home, making sure schools are involved, making sure that there's outlets and safe places for individuals to go. And then just overall, when there's frustrations going on, and at school sometimes is the last thing that our juveniles want to think about. They don't see it as a way to deal with their issues. They don't see it as a way of success to get out of certain environments. And it's hard for us, that's one thing. Communities all need to work together to try to make sure that we're doing what's best for these students. And I think a judge has a role in that too, to make sure that the reports that are being brought to us by probation officers or the school counselors are up to date, and that they're actually taking the time to work with these juveniles. I could say, the numbers are concerning, though, when we don't have enough resources in the school to begin with. I feel like to really address some of the issues that are going on at home. Then you couple that with food insecurity, you couple that with whatever products of the environment. It is so much. The rabbit hole is so deep. And now we're adding NTI on top of it. and then equities that come with that, and the frustration of certain parents. Let's not even talk about core math. I mean, some people are just struggling with technology, like how to even get onto Google Meets and how to, and then like really like I had my nephew and my sister, she's gonna kill me. This is a great example of this though, because she was so frustrated by the system, and my grandma came through and bought a computer because I mean we do have that blessing. He logged on and started zooming. We looked at him like, if you knew how to do all this, and then so my sister's like, well, now he gets to teach me, you know. So she gets to sit down with him, and she's still like, girl, I didn't even know. And so, but you got to have that engagement, and she has to be willing to stay up, even though she works nights, to be able to get that done. Because it takes everybody. It takes involved parents, the community. God bless you, and God willing, if you have grandparents, an auntie like me, you know, who, you know, comes and tries to spoil with a little things here and there if you get the right grades. Because I know education is so key. And it's so key for people to be in the right places, to be our principals, to be our community directors, to really be seen in the theater, to be our judges and our lawyers. I know Sam talked about Councilwoman Jessica Green. Well, I've known her since high school because we went to Central High School, which really did feed into our law and government program here and has produced so many Black attorneys in our community. We might as well have adopted Juanita, but just because we all went to U of L together and then we ended up studying together. So it's such a small group of legal minds that need to then be coupled with going back into the communities and back into the schools to make sure everybody's working together so everybody can see. If you don't like the way a judge rules sometimes, maybe that needs to be if you want to correct injustices and right wrongs, then, you know, put in the work, get to where you need to be and change it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Judge. I do want to take a pause for the calls and remind you guys that we are taking donations to help support Roots 101, which is a brand new African American museum that is located on Main Street. Lamont Collins is the director over there, the owner and operator of that. You can reach out to him on Facebook if you want to set up a private tour. I was able to go on a private tour of the facility, and it is absolutely amazing. It's going to be an amazing venue space. You can rent out space for your events post-COVID, but it's going to be an absolutely amazing place. And so if you feel so led, please do donate to help support Roots 101 and Actors Theater. And we will be partnering with them. I think this is our last week that we're partnering with them. All of the proceeds that we've raised in the month of July went to support Roots 101.
Now, don't let the listeners think that they can go get a one-on-one tour. Everybody's not Erica Denise.
I mean,
they may not be able to get a one-on-one tour, so don't throw that out there. That might not be.
Just but saying. Hey, I did. I got a tour. It's nice. So
see, there you go.
Okay.
I'm gonna say no, Erica Denise.
No, right?
Daughter. I'm gonna throw all the plugs in there to get me a tour.
I think you can though. I don't think it's quite.
Yeah.
He doesn't care.
He cares, and that's why, because he's been passionate about that project, and we should be grateful for him as well. I mean, you're talking about having our own right here in Louisville.
Absolutely.
It took years and years. I still haven't gotten to the one in Washington D.C., but I sure do want to go to the one here because I watched. I don't know if a lot of people know that you could watch his Facebook. He really talks about the different exhibits that are there, and I'm not trying to jump it because I love that he's passionate about it. And we should be passionate about it. So thank you so much for making sure that we're getting that up and rolling and supported. And I think he's watching. So.
He is. He just jumped in. I got you. Yeah. So I didn't misspeak. I think he's giving private tours to anybody that wants one, I believe. So let's jump back in. Sam, are you asleep? Because I have a question for you.
I'm not asleep.
Okay, you requested that LMPD release all radio traffic associated with the night that Taylor died. And so what are you hoping to find out? And do you have any idea what will be found in those communications? And will it be released to the public?
Who was it that called you out on these package questions where you throw in like 10 and 1? Let's see if we can knock it all out in one answer. So basically, what would make this different than, like, when you're just listening to the normal police scanner, the officers go to secure channels depending on certain situations. So like your narcotics detectives, they have their own secure radio channel. So, it's hosted by Metro Safe, but you can't just get on your radio scanner and hear it. That would have been a channel that they would have been communicating about in relation to the surveillance and the execution of the search warrant and who all was present where. Obviously, that's why we want that radio right there, because we want to know who was where, what their operations plans were, and how they went so catastrophically wrong. After the shooting, they everybody switched to what's called a tactical channel that they have, which is TAC 3. It's another secure channel. So that was where everybody went as kind of the centralized communication hub for who's going where, what the investigation is showing. And it's basically how the officers talk to each other. And it's not what you're going to hear just on your normal radio scanner. There's a lot of discrepancies through the documents right now as to who was present, whether there were body cameras, why they sent an ambulance to stage for a warrant at 11:12 p.m. on March 12th, but then at 11:39 called it off. I mean, to us, that screams that intelligence changed. So they were going to hit Brianna's house, then they changed their mind and decided they weren't. And then all of a sudden something changed again over the next hour. Radio communications will reconcile this. That's how they're all communicating with each other. And my biggest fear is just now that, now that we're fortunate enough to get a good ruling today that it all needs to be turned over. I wonder what the city's going to say they have versus what they don't have. Hopefully they'll have everything we asked for. In terms of whether or not the public will get it, what needs to be realized is that we do have a protective order in place. That's not a gag order. That's not us saying, we're worried about what this stuff's going to be. We don't want the public to see it. There was two options, Erica. One was we don't get it and nobody else gets it. The other option was we get it, but we can't share it, because if we share it, then the AG's office and the feds are all going to, I guess, raise holy hell and say that we're compromising the investigation. And that protective order is in place. One of the mechanisms that's associated with that protective order is that if we get some information and if we disagree that it should be kept confidential, we can actually move the court and see if they'll release it and remove it from the umbrella of that protective order. So there's recourse there. But yeah, that's what we're looking for, and that's why the public can't have it. And if it were up to me, I'd put the whole file on Dropbox right now and give everybody a link and say, have at it. I want everybody to see everything. We got nothing to hide. And there's nothing that we've gotten in this case that's made us feel any less strong about it. We feel very passionate and strong about this case. And unfortunately, there's just certain things that we're not allowed to release right now because we're under a judicial order not to do it.
Thank you for that information. We do have a few questions from the audience that I want to try to get to before we end today. Angela Jackson Brown wants to know, why should the police remain anonymous if they are standing up for what is right? That is part of the problem, too much secrecy.
I saw that, and that was a damn good question. And unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for it. It is, the blue line is very real, Erica. And unfortunately, if an officer comes forward right now with information or with something, that shows support for the community, while I think they should, and while I think it's the right thing to do, they then have 1,100 brothers and sisters that will look at them like they're a rat, that may not come to help them out at a time of need, that may put their job in jeopardy. And ultimately, it's going to take officers choosing their community, choosing what's right, choosing social justice over that fear, to show other officers that it's going to be okay to do that. And we're still waiting for that. There were several officers that broke rank and went in and locked arms with the protesters, and that was beautiful. It was wonderful. We need to see more of that, but we also need to see more officers that realize that, accountability and transparency and doing the right thing, especially when innocent people are hurt or killed over what's not being said, that takes precedence over, keeping things to your chest because of that blue line.
Thank you. Erica Young Reevy asks, What will JCPS be doing during NTI to make sure families continue to access mental health services? And how can us as therapists and other agencies help during NTI to make sure families get their mental health needs met?
All right, so we just had a meeting about this today, and at the end of last year, we focused on ensuring our students got their mental health services during NTI. It wasn't always easy because they had to do it virtually, or they had to do it via phone call. So it's because we are in a pandemic, we're going to follow the same type of system, which is unfortunate because we know one-on-one contact with therapists is a lot better than phone calls or virtual Zoom, Google Meets, whatever, because you don't know who's listening and everything may not be confidential on the student side. As a therapist, please contact the school that you're assigned to. Every school has assigned mental health counselors, and some of them have therapists if they have that in their budget. So those positions are normally already filled. If you're interested in those positions, you can simply go to JCPS employment and search for a school that needs those services, or just search for the need for those services and apply. But we, at this time, because of HIPAA laws and all that kind of stuff, we can't have therapists just go into buildings and assist. But if you're interested in working with a school, then you can apply. And I do know there were some mental health counselor positions and therapist positions available. I was just on there today looking to see what positions we had posted, and I saw some. So if you're interested in doing that work with JCPS, go apply. And the work is very rewarding because we have some students, especially when I was at the elementary level, they don't know how to cope with their day-to-day life. And a lot of our students suffer from so much trauma, they can't even focus during school. So I can only imagine their normal trauma and then trauma being, because sometimes they go to school and they want to be there because they feel safe and they have a meal and they have teachers that care for them and they have friends. And so all this time at home, dealing with trauma on a daily basis all day, and then what school they do have is in front of a screen, that is just like too much for our students. So we're going to ensure, especially our elementary students, all of them that need these services, we're going to make sure that they do have those services. So parents, most of your insurance companies do pay for these services. And then we have mental health counselors that are at schools that anyone, staff or students can go through with their services there as well. So if you do have a therapist that is assigned to your student, make sure you contact your student's school and get them on a rotation of therapy services. If you don't have insurance or you don't have an assigned therapist yet, you can also contact your school and get a hold of their mental health counselor, because they'll be able to assist as well.
Erica, I want to just add into that. So as a community place here, most of our students and parents always ask about some help, mental health guidance and therapists and things like that. So I have a list of resources and therapists that I tend to give out to parents as well, because that's really big for our community, because they seem like sometimes they don't feel like they can call, or they might not get the right person when they call the school, or maybe the school just doesn't really know at that moment. And so, and that's something that I think that we at the Boys and Girls Club also want to try to collaborate with JCPS in that realm too, with the therapists, especially if my kids go to an elementary school like Brandeis, and who is the youth service coordinator there, and who is the mental health therapist there, if there is a mental health therapist there, so that I know who I'm automatically to reach out to. I know that I have kids that go to Brandeis or kids that go to Iroquois High School, and I know who the mental health therapist is. And so I think that is where we kind of have a disconnect at the moment, and hopefully we can connect where we know who the mental health therapists are, the counselors there, and so that we could give those resources and to the parents, and especially to the student as well, because they come here and they struggle, and so we're not trained to do any of those things. We just try our best to give the best advice as possible. But I do encourage that question is a very important question. because right now we are in a time where mental health is something that we, especially in the Black community, we need to talk about, and it's kind of shunned, and we have seen it kind of get worse a little bit more over the times that we have. Just like we've mentioned before, we're going through some times that we have never ever went through. We're going through things that I don't think we ever thought. Like we saw it on TV, like people say like The Simpsons, and we've seen that, and now like we're actually living that. Like we are. I went to the mall the other day, and I never thought that I am walking through Oxmoor Mall and I see people with masks. Like I never thought that I would ever be trying to purchase masks, varieties of them, trying to match outfits with the bag.
Cute
Like,
ones, yeah.
kind of cute or something. Like I never thought that that would be an accessory that I need. And so to see that, it's like, wow. And the kids and the parents, in just on top of all the other things that they have to worry about before this has even happened. Now they have to worry about how to get food on the table, how to pay this, how to do that, how to do the long division, how to keep safe and not be, not get coronavirus and do all of this stuff. So that is something that I think that we need to work on as a community and utilize everybody's resources and try to get as much help as possible. I know that it is hard via, Zoom and things like that, but maybe hopefully we could try to figure out how we can get more resources, especially for our community centers here, to get therapists in our buildings and things like that to really reach our kids.
One thing that bothers me about what you said is we have parents that I know for a fact that don't trust the school system because of their kids' experiences. And so they go to the organizations that they do trust, and they may not have the resources. So then they have to go back to the place that they don't trust. And so one thing that we're going to do at our school this year, we're under a completely different leadership than before. And we are really working hard on building relationships with our students, with our parents, because we do need to partner with these organizations, and we do need to build those relationships with the organizations and with the family. So they'll know when you come here, if something's going on, we're not just saying that your child needs these services or we have these services because we want to get what information we need to call CPS, because that's what a lot of our parents are afraid of. So I commend you for wanting to partner with schools. And I think it's vital for us to work together, because if they can go to you and you can contact the school, we can still give them those resources. And then whatever reservations because, parents, I remember I worked at the Boys and Girls Club as a tutor, and they would come in and tell us all the business. And of course, when you call the school, you can have discretion, but tell them, okay, this is the reason why they're not going to you, because X, Y, Z. They've actually mentioned Miss Hunter's name. So could she not be the one that provides these services or gives them? So we need that relationship with those organizations, with, like Boys and Girls Club and the different organizations around our community, so we can get our services to our students without prejudice and without recourse and without fear from the parents.
Thank you both, Angela and Monica. We are going to go over our 1 hour just by a few minutes. I do have one question for Judge Hickerson and one more question for Sam, but I'm going to treat you all like we do in the Black church and funerals when associate ministers get up to talk, if you can answer in 1 minute or less. So that we can get out of here on time. So Judge Hickerson, statistics show a rise in domestic violence issues, especially during mandated stay-at-home orders. Have you seen a rise? And if so, can you tell us about it? And what resources are you aware of that can support families and married couples during this time?
All right, start. Okay. I actually tried to find our statistics because that was something that we wanted to know, because we're still taking priority of domestic violence cases so that our communities and people could feel safe. I'm not sure exactly if there is a specific rise in Jefferson County, but I know because we're only handling, we're handling certain cases. If you got a traffic ticket, she ain't been to court. But so we're really making sure that we're getting those cases in so we can address what's going on at home. Of course, people being at home, I do think has led to just seeing more of those type cases, people not being able to get out, get their outlets. people have lost their jobs. All those type of things can stress and contribute to domestic violence. So we have partners in the community where you can go get battery intervention program classes, CMC and things like that. So we keep making sure people go to those type of things. We know it's important, whether we're in a pandemic or not, that people need to make sure they're seeking help as individuals and hopefully as families, if it is something that they want to continue on past those. So reach out. We have advocates and all those good things, and we're hopefully that we'll see those numbers just decline in general.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
You were about 15 seconds longer.
Like 10.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Sam, you're on mute. What are you saying? Are you talking to us or somebody else?
I said, y'all are way too nice. It was 1 minute and 23 seconds. So put my clock at 37. We'll see what we can do.
I love it. So Sam, how can the community come together to support you and Breonna Taylor's family?
Yeah, so they can lobby for reform. In terms of things that are going to create permanent change, the law trumps everything, because that's going to show that there really is some accountability. So in terms of things that they could be lobbying for, number one, drug and alcohol testing. Number two, automatic termination for substantiated acts of racism. Number three, search warrants actually go to, a commanding officer every time. Number four, get rid of dynamic entry warrants. We could go on and on and on, but reform, because if you get policy and you basically force an officer, if you take the discretion out of his or her hands, then these types of things get better and they get fixed. Another thing right now, there's a lot of pressure on Daniel Cameron. There's a lot of pressure on our mayor. There's not a lot of pressure on Mitch McConnell, and Mitch McConnell seems to be, Daniel Cameron seems to do a lot to try to appease Mitch McConnell. And I was talking to Attica Scott about that the other night. So I really don't see why he's not being put in the equation right there. Anyways, time is up, so I am done.
Thank you all so much. I do have one last question that I do like to ask all of the panelists that sit on the panel for Actors Theater Unscripted. In one sentence or just a few words, I would like to know, what do you know for sure? Monica.
I know that everything is going to work out for our good. I know for sure.
Thank you. Judge Hickerson.
I know I can do all things through God who strengthens me.
Absolutely. Angela.
I know for sure that I will continue to fight for the community that I serve for.
Absolutely. And last but not least, Sam.
I know that people are forgiving in nature, and that if we can come together and make some change, we can forgive and move on and make the world a better place.
Absolutely. Thank you all so very much for being here with us today on Actors Theater Unscripted. Thank you to everyone that commented and watched today. Please donate to Roots 101 and Actors Theater if you feel so led. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.